My understanding is that we're at the bottom of Dafnun Zayin on the base, a few lines from the bottom. Lema Hakavas Kolarosh. So what we saw yesterday was kind of fascinating, a bit of a digression, where we know that the Nazir at the end of the term, always at the end of the term, maybe even beforehand, sometimes they have to do a tiklachas, and there's a little bit of a tension, right? Because we know that there is a isser in the Torah about shaving your payas, and the Gemara had a whole thing yesterday about, especially when you have these situations of where there's only a suffix, what do we do about it? And the Gemara at least suggested, right, an approach could have been, right, this was not Shmuel's approach, but an approach could have been that maybe a kafas kol rosh is lo shma kafa, meaning maybe the isser of lo sashles is when you dafka cut your payas. But if you shave your entire head, there wouldn't be an isser of lo sashles. The bottom line is the Gemara didn't go that route, but where we're going to pick up today is the Gemara is going to say, perhaps that itself, whether or not a kafas kol rosh is shma kafa or not, is subject to a machlokas tanaim. So that's where we're going to pick up 3 lines from the bottom of Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis. Lema kafas kol rosh tonight. So maybe this concept of whether or not the isser of lo sashkas applies when you shave your entire head, maybe that is machlokas tanaim. Tana Rabbanan, we have a brisa. This is in the parsha of Mitzorah. The word says rosho. So again, this is a pasuk that we've become familiar with. But we'll read it again. It says, "V'haya b'yom hashvi," on the 7th day, Yigalachas kol se'aro. The Mitzorah shaves all the hair on his body, and then the Torah gets very specific. Es rosho, v'esikano, v'eskavos einav. And again, as we've seen a number of times, even in this Masechta, there's different limudim for each one of those words. So the first price says, Tana Rabbanan, rosho, matam alamer. Why do I need this word rosho? Lefish and amar lo sakifu pas roshtam, because we know we have an isser of not cutting off your payas. Maybe I think even a Mitzorah, notwithstanding the fact that has to shave his whole body, maybe he leaves his payas. Hamaloma rosho. So the Torah says no, rosho, even a Mitzorah can shave his head. Netanya Edom, we have another brisa, and it says rosho again, same pasuk, same word, rosho matam alamer. Why do we need this word rosho? If the pasuk already told me I can shave my entire body, why do I need an extra word of rosho? Lafisha namar gabi nazir. So the second brisa says, because we know that a nazir is not allowed to shave his head, right? A nazir, it says tar lo yavar al rosho. So yachol af nazir mitzorah kain. You would think that maybe a nazir who's a mitzorah shouldn't shave his head because a nazir can't shave his head. Tamalomar rosho. So no, the pasuk says rosho to teach me that even a nazir mitzorah shaves his head when he's a mitzorah, meaning that the mitzvah of tiglachas of a mitzorah overrides the isser tiglachas of a nazir. So the Gemara says, right, we have these 2 brises that seemingly go different directions with how they darshan this word. So my lab tanaim, maybe this is gufa the machlokas tanaim. Lamand amar min nazir, according to the second brisa, who says I need Rosha to teach me that a nazir can shave. He doesn't need to teach that. He doesn't have a problem with the regular isser of lo sakifu because kavas kol rosh lo shma kafa. He'll tell you that there really is no isser of shaving your payas when you shave your entire head. And therefore, as long as the Mitzorah shaves his entire head, he never had a problem with lo sakifu. So therefore, he had to come on to the isser of nazir. So I need the pasuk of Rosho to teach me that a nazir Mitzorah can shave. Why would I think a nazir Mitzorah can't shave? And again, we're about to get kind of deep into the sugya of asay dochalos asay, but the bottom line is when it comes to a nazir, there's not only an asay, los asay, sorry, there's the los asay, of course, of tar lo yavar al rosho, but in that very same pasuk, there's also an asay. The pasuk says kadosh yeh gadel tera. So there's a los asay and an asay. I would have a havamina at the top of nun chesam and aleph. I would have, therefore, I would think, if not for the extra pasuk, that a nazir mitzorah shouldn't shave his head. Kamash Malan, that the asay of Mitzorah, in this case, could even be docha the los asay v'asay. The idach and the first brisa who needed Rosho to teach me that every Mitzorah is allowed to shave his payas, Savar kafas kol rosh shma kafa. He learns that even if you shave your entire head, you still have this isser of shaving your payas, and therefore he needed rosh, right? So therefore, the pasuk of rosh teaches me not nazir. I don't get to jump to nazir because I needed to teach me the ikar halacha anyway, that a mitzorah is allowed to shave his head.
So wait, there are 2 psukim.
It's the same pasuk, but there's 2 different brises with how you darshan the pasuk.
Oh, it's the
same pasuk. So one brisa says I needed, because every case of Mitzorah, I need to know that you're allowed to shave your payas. The other one says that's not what I need. I needed to teach me another Mitzorah. And the Gemara is suggesting that maybe Gufa, the machlokas between these two brisas, is hakafas kol harosh shma hakaf. If you hold that hakafas kol harosh is still subject to the law of payas, so then I need the pasuk to teach me that a Mitzorah is allowed to shave his head. If you learn that no, as long as I shave my entire head, I have no issur of payas, then I can use the word to teach me nazir. Okay, but the Gemara says, Amar Rava. Rava says, no, it's not mufak. Really, I'll tell you that everyone's going to agree that when you shave your entire head, it's not the issur of hakafas payas. So the kasha is, according to the first brisa, why did I need this pasuk of rosho? Right? If I don't have an issur in the first place, why do I need the pasuk? So b'chiasa kra to go into hikkish a little bit so hileach. I'll tell you, it's a case of, hakavas kol harosh lo shma hakaf if you shave your entire head. But what if you just shave your payas and then a minute later you shave the rest of your head? That wouldn't work. So I need the pasuk to teach me that even if a person shaves his head kind of unconventionally, he's still not going to be subject. Why? The Gemara says, because if the guy shaved his entire head in one sitting, or whatever this means, at one time, he's not going to be chayiv. So ki hekif u'lebasof ki leach nami lo mechayiv. So even if you do it in stages, it's also not going to be chayiv. But the problem is the Gemara is going to fall off this immediately. The Gemara says, would this really be the case? Would the Torah really say this? But Amar Reish Lakish, we have a very famous memor from Reish Lakish. If you look in the Masoros Shas, you've seen this in Daf Mem Aleph, you've seen this in Shabbos, you've seen this in Yavamis. Reish Lakish has a very famous memor. It says, Kol makom shatamoti asay velos asay. Every time you have a conflict between an asay and a los asay, imata yachol akayim eshnei muta. If you can do it in a way where you don't have to be over the issur, then of course you do it in a way you don't have to be over the issur. Now, if you can't, if the two of them are conflicting, then of course I'll say so for the los asay. But in this case, if you're telling me that hakafas kol harosh is loshma hakafa, so then just shave your entire head. You wouldn't shave your payas and then shave the rest of your head and come on to this pasuk to teach me that really it's fine. No, just do it in a way where you don't have to be over the assay. So that can't be the pshat. Ella,
in other words, the proper way of doing it is for him to shave his head
Shave it.
first, and then he can do his
yeah,
payas.
then you'd be able to shave your payas.
Then
And
you can do the
exactly.
payas, but you don't do it.
you would never just shave your payas and say, oh, I'm allowed to do it because I have a special pasuk. No, just shave your head. You're not going to be over the
Do that
issur
first,
Yeah.
and then do the payas.
or do it all at one time, whatever that means, in one sitting, whatever it means. So Ella Dekuliyama kafas kol harosh shma kafa. Rather, the Gemara says that both brises are going to hold that a kafas kol harosh is shma hakafa. So then again, the question would be: so the second brisa that used this pasuk to teach me a nazir mitzorah, how does he learn that any regular mitzorah is allowed to shave his head? What does he do with the isra kafa? So man demokam lakra lemidchi los asay lav greater minale. Right, that's the Gemara's question. How does he skip to nazir? Doesn't he need rosho to teach me that any regular mitzorah is allowed to shave his head? No. Yalif mikadilim. He learns asay dochalos asay from where we all learn asay dochalos asay, from the parsha of tzitzis, from the smucha of the smichas of shatnez and tzitzis, right? To Amar Kra, lo silba shatnez. The pasuk says you're not allowed to wear shatnez. The pasuk says lo silba shatnez semer pishim yachlav. The very next pasuk says gedilim tasel l'cha v'tani lo silba shatnez ha gedilim tasel l'cha mehem. We learned this is the whole beginning of the Masechta of Yevamos, where we had all the lengthy Asay Dochalos Asay Sugas. That's where he learns Asay Dochalos Asay. So once I already know that an Asay can be Dochalos Asay, I don't need a pasuk to teach me that a Mitzorah is allowed to shave his payas. So what do I do with Rosho? I come on to a Nazir Mitzorah. So the Gemara is going to do what it often does. Right now it's going to go back and forth. So according to that guy, right? So man de nafkale me Rosho. My time megadilim. So then, according to the first brisa, who needs Rosho to teach me that any regular Mitzorah can't shave his payas, what does he do with gedilim? Right? Why doesn't he just learn asay dochalos asay from shatnez and tzitzis? So Amar Lacha l'cheder Rava Huda. He says, I don't learn asay dochalos asay from there because I have a limud from Rava. Rava had a stira. He said ksiv and nafsnu al tzitzis ha kanaf, and he learned min knaf. Still tcheles, right? He said that what he min kanaf means that whatever the strings are, that should be what the beged is. So if your strings are silk, your baguette should be silk. Uksiv, but it also says semer upishtim yachtav. We know that tzitzis can be semer and pishtim. So I don't understand. If you're telling me that the strings have to be the same as the baguette, how do I have a baguette that's semer and pishtim? Ha, ketzad. So this is we learned this in the beginning of Yivamis. So ha, ketzad semer upishtim potrim bein b'minan bein shelo b'minan. Shar minin b'minan potrin shelo b'minan ein potrin. And Rava's limud from the juxtaposition of these psukim was he said no. If your strings are going to be either wool or linen, so then your baguette could be anything. It could be silk, it could be leather, it could be whatever it is. If your strings are going to be something that's not wool and linen, then the baguette has to be, the same material as your strings. But the bottom line is, what the first brisa will tell you is, I did not learn aseh docha los aseh from the parsha of tzitzis. Rather, I used the pasuk of Gedilim to teach me this other halacha associated with tzitzis. So how do I know aseh docha los aseh? I gufa learn it from the Metzora. Why is the Metzora a lot of Shevis Payas? There's a los aseh of los ashlis. Kamash mala, no, aseh is docha los aseh. And it turns out that there's actually a very fundamental machlokas between these two brises. The second brise learns aseh docha los aseh from tzitzis, and therefore he can use Rosho to teach me the halacha by Nazir, that in the case, at least of a Nazir Metzora, the aseh can be docha the los aseh v'aseh. But the first brisa who doesn't learn aseh docha los aseh from tzitzis, he needs this pasuk of Nazir, of Metzora, the pasuk of Metzora to teach me the aseh is docha los aseh.
Nazir shaves his payas when he's done.
Yeah, but another doesn't have any ister to shave his payas or his beard. Nazir shaves his payas.
Why we learn from Nazir, Torah tells you supposed to shave after finishing the zirus. Why we learn from Metzora? Isn't the lav, isn't the aseh of Metzora tiklach has been by a Nazir? Also aseh docha aseh.
Yes, so I think the Gemara in Yevamos really went through this whole, it was like 4 blot of it, and it went back and forth with all these. So it's a good question. I don't know offhand, but it's a good question. Yeah, I mean, shouldn't.
Don't take us back.
Well, I'm saying that's how we started. Yeah, that's why the sugi started that way.
I was gonna say, we all, yes.
But either way, it's a good question. Either way, so now we're gonna keep. We're gonna keep going back and forth, right? So the Gemara now says, okay, so Bahai Tana Demafik L'Rosho Lilav Greda. So now, according to the Tana who uses Rosho to teach me the lav, right? So if you're keeping cheshbon, right, according to the first brisa, who needed Rosho to teach me the regular case of Metzora, so how does he know that, let's say, a Nazir Metzora, like how does he know that aseh could be docha los aseh v'aseh, right? So he says, nafkale mizikano, right? In the pasuk of Metzora, we had a lot of extra words, and one of them was zikano. The Tanya, we have a brisa, zikano matam at lomar. Why does the pasuk need to tell me zikano? Lefi shenemar, and this is the parsha by the Kohanim. It says upas zikanam lo yigalechu. It says that the Kohanim are not allowed to shave their beards. So yachol af kohen Metzora kain. You would think that maybe even a Metzora who's a kohen is not allowed to shave his beard. Tamalomar zikano. So therefore, the Torah teaches me zikano. Why is a kohen shaving his beard an aseh and a los aseh? So the los aseh is what the pasuk we just had. Upasakadam lo yigalechu. The aseh and azahim yanas here. The aseh is the very next pasuk says kedoshim use. The very next pasuk in Vayikra. I think it's in Parshas Emor, maybe. Here we go. It's in Parshas Emor. So he says, I learned. So again, the first brisa will tell you I can't learn aseh docha los aseh from tzitzis. Rather, from the word rosho in the Parsha Metzora, I learned that a regular Metzora can shave his payas. How do I know that an aseh can be docha los aseh v'aseh in the context of a Metzora? I learned it from zikano. And therefore, once I know it by a Kohen, I also know it by a Nazir. Okay. So then the Gemara is going to go back the other way. Uman demapik leila rosho laseh v'los aseh. So according to the second brisa who uses rosho to teach me the aseh and the los aseh, leilach mizikano. What do you do with zikano? Why don't you just learn it from Kohen? Right? Why do I need the rosho? I have a word zikano that teaches me that already. But he flips the script the second time. He says, I don't understand your question. Ula tamech, according to you, dekai malan ba'alma, turn the page. We know there's a halacha generally that aseh is not docha los aseh v'aseh. Why not? Right? If you're telling me we have a word zikano in the Parsha Metzora to teach me that an aseh can be docha los aseh v'aseh, so then ba'alma, why don't we learn from there that los aseh, an aseh is always docha los aseh v'aseh? So So it says the kaimalan ba'alma the lo afi asay b'dachis lo sasay ba'asay leilach mi kohen didafi. Why don't we learn ba'alma from Zakano that an asay should always be docha lo sasay ba'asay?
In other words, the tase is not doche lo tase. Right?
Normally an asay is docha lo
Or
sasay,
right,
but it's not docha a lo sasay ba'asay. So the question was, according to the second brisa, you learn Rosho to teach me that the asay of Mesora is docha the lo sasay ba'asay. What do you do with Zakana? We have another word in the pasuk that teaches me an asay could be docha lo sasay ba'asay. Why do I need two? And his answer is, he says, I don't understand your question, because you're telling me that you have a source that an asay could be docha lo sasay ba'asay, but everywhere else in the world an asay is not docha lo sasay. So why don't we learn from your word of Zakano to everywhere else in the world? Why don't we? So the Gemara is going to say, Elami kohen lo yalfinan. There must be some weakness in that, in the limud from Kohen. Why? Ma'ala Kohen shekain lav she'eno shava b'kol. Because this halacha of a Kohen shaving, and this Isser is not shava b'kol. Why is it not shava b'kol? So Pashut, you would say, because, I mean, not everyone's a Kohen. But the truth is, no one's allowed to shave their beard. So that can't be it. The Rush speaks out. It's because it's not subject, women aren't subject to this. So this Isser of shaving your beard by a Kohen is a lav she'eno shava b'kol, because it's not applicable to women, and therefore I can't apply this klal of asay is docha lo sasay ba'asay to the rest of the world. And if I can't apply it to the rest of the world, nazir be kohen nami lo yelf, then I also can't learn it to nazir shekain lav she'eno shava b'kol, because nazir is not a lav she'eno shava b'kol. Nazir applies to everyone, right? Women can be nazir. We've seen cases kids can be nazir. So a nazir is a lav she'eno shava b'kol. Therefore, I would not be able to apply this halacha from Kohen to Nazir, and therefore the author of the second brisa will say, I need Rosho to teach me an asay can be docha a lo sasay v'asay in the context of mitzvah.
What is the assay?
A mitzvah shaving his head.
Yeah.
The pasuk says v'haya b'yamashvi galach is kol se'aro. So the asay is he has to shave his head. The lo sasay is if you're a Nazir, tar lo yavar al Rosho.
You talk about the Kohanim that by the Yimei Miluim?
No, I think the Kohanim generally, there's a pasuk that says, Lo yiklu karcha v'rosham, upastikanam lo yigalefu v'saram lo yishartu sarates. Kadosh Yom.
Okay, I thought.
So that's in general.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there are two assays.
There's an extra.
Yeah.
What's the second assay?
For which case, the Nazir or the Kohen?
Yeah, well, we're saying an assay cannot be docha, a lo taseh and an assay. So what's the second
So in
assay?
the context of a Nazir, the asay is in the pasuk of Nazir, it says Kol Yemei Neder Nizro, Tar Lo Yavar Al Rosho, that's the Los asay. And then it says in the end of the pasuk, Kadosh Yeh Gadol Pera. There's a special asay. In the context of Kohen, the Los asay is Zekanam Lo Yigalechu, and then the very next pasuk says Kadoshim Yu. So in both a Nazir and a Kohen, there's a Los asay of shaving, whether it's their head or shaving their beard, and there's also an assay of kadosh yeh or kadoshim yu. But by a mitzorah, the assay of shaving their entire body overrides the los assay and the assay. So we're almost done.
The only case, right?
What? So yes.
The only case that you could say.
So that's exactly right. You can't apply. The Gemara later on is going to ask, once we already have a source for the assays being docha, the los assay, why don't we apply it everywhere else? And the Gemara is going to have an answer. Yeah, so I don't no spoilers. We'll get there. We'll get there. So next leg here, Uman demokum lahai Rosho bin Nazir. So according to the second brisa, who learns Rosho to teach me that the asay can be docha the los asay v'asay ben Nazir la maliza kana. So we just said, meaning I understand that if I only had a source for Kohen, I can't learn to Nazir because we would have a pircha. But why can't I learn the other way around? Nazir is more chamor than Kohen, right? Because it's a lav shavuot
from Nazir.
Exactly. So if I know that the asay of Mitzorah can be docha the los asay v'asay of Nazir, so for sure it should be able to be docha the los asay v'asay of Kohen, which is not even as chamor as Nazir.
Right.
So what does that person? What does that Tana do with Zakano? So Mabayale, he has a whole different limud entirely. Mabayale l'chidetanya. He has a limud. This is a brisa that we saw earlier in the Masechta. Zikano matam alomer. What do I do with Zikano? Lefishin emar pasuk nam lo yigalechu. Because it says that Kohanim are not allowed to shave. Yachalaf kohen mitzorakein. Tam alomer Zikano uminalan de betar. The first part of the Bryce, I think the Bach even takes out. Uminalan de betar. So this is, I think, the key, the punchline. And how do I know that a mitzorah needs to shave with a tar? Titania with a razor. Titania, we have a Brysa. Upasuk anam lo yigalechu. Yachol af gilchu b'misparaim. You would think that the Isser applies even if a Kohen shaves his beard with scissors. Yehechayev. So Talmud lomar v'lo sashkos. We have another pasuk, and this is in the context of Yisrael, that says lo sashkos. He's not allowed to destroy, which is mashma that more than a scissor. Even it can't just be with a scissor. It has to be something that really destroys the hair to the roots. Elo sashkos. If I only had that pasuk, yachol likton b'milkad brehitni chayev, then I would think you don't need a razor. Meaning, even if you just use some other sort of blade which cuts, it maybe doesn't give you the cleanest, most nice looking shave, but it cuts the hair to the roots. Maybe I'd be chayev. Talmalomer pasuk anam lo yigalechu. No, that's why I have in the other pasuk upasuk anam lo yigalechu ezuv yiluach sheyesh bo hashchasa. So what is the shaving which has hashchasa? Heavy omer zatar. So the bottom line is, what we're basically saying now is that according to the second Tana, he has a different limud from tar. He basically, he has a different limud from Zikano. He learns basically that in the context of a mitzorah, you need to shave with a tar. And the reality is at this stage, we could recap the daf and we could really be done. From here to the two dots, it's very unclear what the Gemara is actually doing. You can see from the Rishonim, they have very different girsas. And it's seemingly the Gemara is going to ask a bunch of questions that it already asked, but I think we're just going to go with the way Tosfos learns. So if you have at least the regular daf of the regular Turas daf, so this very long Tosfos, the one that Haraf or whatever Harif. So a few lines down into the wide lines, it says Lakach Nera Laharam. So that's the approach that we're going to take, and we have to really speak out what the Gemara is going to do over here because a lot of it is unspoken. But the bottom line is, the Gemara is going to say like this. If you are the first Tana, right? So you used Rosho to teach you the regular Mitzorah is allowed to shave his head. And therefore you use the Kano to teach me Aseh is docha los aseh va'aseh. How do you know this other halacha that we just learned that a Mitzorah needs to shave with a tar? So the Gemara says, and again, this is all unspoken. The Gemara says, no, you need Zakano to teach me that halacha, that a Mitzorah needs to shave with the tar. So now you're left with, now you don't know. How do you know Aseh is locha los aseh va'aseh? So the Gemara is going to say, well, the Gemara is not going to say it, but this is all in the mind of the Gemara before they ask the question. Elamai, you'll have to tell me that the word Zakano in the language of Tosfos is Mikra Male Dibur HaKasef. It has to do both. You basically have to say that you read just the pashtus of the pasuk, right? It says, Yigalach is kol se'aro as Rosho Vesikano. It says that a Mitzorah shaves his beard, and it's not talking to any one specific Mitzorah. It's talking to a regular Mitzorah. It's talking to a Mitzorah who's a Nazir. It's talking to a Mitzorah who's a Kohen. And therefore, from the word itself of Zakano, I learned two things. I learned A, that a Mitzorah needs to use a razor. I also learned that even a Kohen has to shave his beard, simply from the word Zakano. The problem is, if that's how you read the word Zakano, then you kind of have to read the word Rosho the same way, because the word Rosho is 2 words earlier. So the same way Zakano is going to apply, to every Mitzorah, even a Mitzorah who's a Kohen. Rosho is going to apply to every single Mitzorah, even a Mitzorah who's a Nazir. The problem is, now we have the word Rosho and the word Zakano, and both of them teach me that the Aseh of Mitzorah can be docha not only a los Aseh, but also a los Aseh v'Aseh. So the Gemara is going to say, why do I need 2 sources to teach me the same thing? So again, a lot of it is unspoken. It's all in this very lengthy Tosfos, if you want to, look at it on your own. But let's just pick up the Gemara. Again, it's a bit of a shver Gemara, and I think the Mefarshim really struggle to get kind of what the Gemara is even doing here. But either way, so we'll pick it up. So we're at Uman de Mafikla. So Uman de Mafikla lahai Rosho la Breda. So according to the first Tana who used the word Rosho to teach me the simple law that a Mitzorah is allowed to shave his head, lamali lemichtav Rosho, v'lamali lemichtav Zakano. Why do I need the word Rosho? Why do I need Zakano? Mashma lemidchi la Bredo, mashma lemidchi los aseh v'aseh. Hilkach shakal hu v'yavo shnein. And the bottom line is, as we spoke out, the bottom line is once you go through this whole process, it turns out that both words are really teaching me that the shaving of a Mitzorah applies to everyone, not a Kohen, even a Nazir,
So
and
really
therefore I have
that's
2
the base.
words. What?
Really, that's the base.
Yeah, so really I have two words teaching me the same thing. Teaching me that why do I need two words? Why do I need Cohen? And why do I need Rosho and Zakano? Just teach me one and I'll learn the other, right? And not only that, just teach me one and I'll learn either Cohen from Nazir or Nazir from Cohen. Also, just teach me one. We have another question of, we know that Ba'alma, an assay is not dochalos assay b'assay. If we have two different sources here that teach me that an assay can be dochalos assay b'assay, so why don't we apply that to the rest of the world? So that's kind of the Gemara's questions, and the Gemara is going to answer the same answer it gave not too long ago, which is Kohen mi Nazir lo yalef. If we only had Nazir, I couldn't learn Kohen shkein yeshno b'she'ela, because Nazir has a weakness, and that you can always go to a chacham and you can be mater neder, right? So and that doesn't apply to a Kohen. So if I only had Nazir, I wouldn't know the halacha of Kohen from Nazir. Nazir mi Kohen lo yalef, and if I only had Kohen, I can't learn Nazir from Kohen. Shekein lav she'eno shava b'kol. Like the Gemara said earlier, because Kohen has its own pircha, and that the isser of shaving by a Kohen doesn't apply to everyone. It doesn't apply to women, and therefore I couldn't learn Nazir from Kohen. And the last piece, uba alma lo yalfina minayu. And once I have two sources of asay dochlos asay v'asay, I can't apply that to anywhere else because mishum de'ika lamipra kada amram, because I have both of these pirchas. Right, one of them is subject to she'ela, the other one is lav she'enu shav b'kol, and therefore I would not be able to apply this asay dochlos asay v'asay anywhere else. I would suggest we stop here because tomorrow is actually super easy.
Yeah.
It's super easy.